Welcome to the May 17th, 2022 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for the town of Raymond. Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order. The board does have a quorum. I am now going to do roll call. Start with you, Greg.
Greg Dean.
Fred.
Fred Miller.
And David Murch. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Call to order. Number 2, discussion regarding proposed amendments to bylaws. Number 3, interview with Pete Awkward for a position on the board. Number 4, adjournment. This meeting is not over until the board has formally adjourned. Any discussion not included on the meeting agenda or accepted by the board is to be held until after adjournment or conducted outside of the meeting room. So next up is discussion regarding proposed amendment to bylaws. So we actually have, ultimately 3 amendments to look at. Greg, if you want to take us through the 2 that you worked on, and then I can take us through the one that I worked on. Yeah, I guess, sure. And well, we're not, just to be clear, we're not going to actually vote these changes in or, in tonight. Tonight's is just to review them as they've been written. And as a board, make a decision as to what we like with regards to the wording, and then finalize that wording, and then whatever's comes out of that, we will look to formally bring into the bylaws at an upcoming meeting. So does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, excellent. It's all yours, Greg.
Yeah, so there's 2 proposals to the ZBA bylaws, both for, I believe it's Article 6, is that right?
Article 4.
4, okay, I got it backwards. But Section 6, Article 4, the proposal reads as, no new items of business on the agenda may be brought up for discussion after 10 p.m. Items not brought up for discussion because of this time deadline are to be placed on the agenda of the next regular meeting or on the agenda of a special meeting held at the convenience of the applicant and board members. This rule may be waived by unanimous vote of the members present. So this is just basically, I believe verbatim borrowed from the planning board's bylaws, and I don't know, should I go into the rationale or the reasoning behind this, or how do you think the best way to proceed with discussion around it? Do you just want to open it up for comments from the members?
If you want to take us through the rationale, that sounds good, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so the rationale is to basically provide some mechanisms to kind of gracefully ease out of long-running meetings. Most notably, if they run really long, it can be difficult to kind of get high quality of debate and consideration for everybody involved. So the thinking is that after 10, it's a reasonable deadline to stop putting new items on, and that would help prevent kind of runaway board meetings. And I'll go ahead and just read the proposal for Section 7 as well, which is similar but more of a harder deadline. And this Section 7 proposal reads, after 12 a.m., items currently in discussion shall be tabled. Items tabled because of this time deadline are to be placed on the agenda of the next regular meeting or on the agenda of a special meeting held at the convenience of the applicant and board members. This rule may be waived by unanimous vote of the members present. So the rationale here is, again, I think just makes the chairperson's job a little bit easier, having a statutory requirement where the meeting sort of constructively tables and adjourns. Of course, there's an opt-out mechanism of that as well. So I think I sort of noticed there's a lot of pressure to manage the meeting, and as it gets later, to try to gauge everybody's level of fatigue and willingness to participate. Just having having a statutory deadline where we just agree to table it and move on, I think is a desirable backstop from again, runaway timelines.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, of course. Yep. Yeah. Just consider this like free flow conversation.
So like in the section 6 that we're talking about, that we're going to use the 10 p.m. as kind of the cutoff. That is area where the chairman can say, hey, look, with this at 10 o'clock, maybe we can think about wrapping things up. You say that no new discussions, that's if he added. So let's say if we have 3 different appeals that we're looking at and we're on, say, the second one or the first one, and if we can wrap it up, say by 10:30, but from that point on, we're not to start the second or the third one. Is that way I understand that to be what you're proposing?
Yeah. So if we're let's say agenda item 1 starts at 7 and we wrap it up at 10:30, there would have to be a vote to take it. And there's a second or third agenda item. There would have to be a vote to continue with the second item. Otherwise, it would just be by default tabled and put on the agenda of the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say if we had, like you said, if we had 3 and we got 1 through 10:30 and we voted to go to the second one, does that mean that we can stop at the second one, or do we have to continue to the third one?
Yeah, I think the way this, at any point after 10 p.m., it requires a unanimous vote to take something off the, or to start a new agenda item, I guess is my understanding. Again, I'm not the original author of this wording, but I liked it. And I thought that I read it too. When I read it, I interpreted as that after 10, it just requires a unanimous vote. Doesn't mean we can't do it, but like, unanimous vote for number 2 and then a unanimous vote for number 3.
You're in?
Yeah, because one of our agenda items is adjournment, so we would certainly need to. We'd have to waive it to at least bring in the adjournment piece to it.
Right. Yeah, I suppose we could special case adjournment in the bylaw, or we could just agree unanimously to adjourn.
I think, yeah, you've got the out clause, right? That last sentence lets us accommodate it. So,
yeah.
And Fred, Greg took this word for word out of the bylaws that the planning board currently has. So this is consistent. This would be consistent with what they're doing as well.
And I think it gives us, an agenda. So if something happens, like what happened in the past there, that you have the ability to let's say, hey, let's table this, for the next the next meeting, instead of everybody trying to keep going and at the end where everybody was getting pretty tired. So.
Yep. Hi, Tom. I just see you. I just saw you arrive. So if you want to officially introduce yourself for the record.
Tom Hennessy.
Awesome. Good to have a fellow board member here. So might as well, it's kind of like a package deal. So like, why don't we just look at the second one in conjunction with this? I like section 7. It is nice to have a stopping point for the night. Does it? I'm reading it and I'm just wondering, is there some flow from this though to at least go into, like, I want to make sure that we can get to our adjournment part of the agenda with this one.
David, it's not hard for you to get to the agenda, the adjournment part.
All right, thank
When
you.
you're not going to pull something else in, you make a motion to table this, and this on the agenda until the next meeting, and then you make a motion to adjourn.
Wonderful.
So this second section is basically to cover us if we're still on, let's say, the first piece of agenda, and we go to 10 o'clock. We at that time say, okay, no more new articles started today, but then we will go up till midnight to finish the first article that we're on. Is that correct? Is that on?
Yeah, and the thinking there again is like, you know, we may decide to take something off. I wanted ample time to be able to take something off at like 9:30, and you know, let's say we spend 2.5 hours on something. I feel like there's a reasonable threshold that you know, if we're still in discussion and it's the next day, it's the next calendar day, it's probably fair to everybody involved to have at least an opt opt-out mechanism. Is that right? Let me see if I'm getting it right. But you know, I really just think that it's tough to be in the situation of the chair trying to, you know, you're looking at the clock, tick, 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 and I would rather just have it go to a vote and be able to say, yeah, I'm done, than try to manage it on, you know, on an ad hoc basis. I think it's just easier. And I don't know if it's 12. We can change I don't think that the exact time is the matters. I just think that there needs to be ample time to do work. And it should be, you know, not so late that it's you know, completely unreasonable. Like 4 a.m. doesn't really help us, but like, I thought it was a good compromise of, hey, we got another 2 hours if we need it to actually close this out. And then, you know, kind of constructively, you know, we table it and move on.
Yep. So this works for me, and I like it because section 6, you know, once you get past section 6, then you're, you know, I'm just trying to think this through. So Fred's example, we got 3 agenda items. We're still on agenda item 1 by 10:30. And let's just say we choose to take on number 2, then now it's midnight, then boom, that one's tabled. And section 6 already accounted for item number 3. So yeah, to me, I'm just trying to think through any loopholes or whatever. I mean, to me, it looks good.
I like it. I think it sounds good. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it flows.
Yep. What do you think, Tom?
I'm good with it. We need to have some kind of method to close out a meeting without making, you know, judgments on the fly, I guess.
Right. So is there any, having looked at this, is there any suggestion for wording changes, or as what we're seeing could essentially cut and paste into the bylaws?
The other thing I'd ask is the applicants that are coming up in front of the zoning board, is this something that they'll know because these are our guidelines, so that when we hit them things that just, you know, they realize that we'll have that for an option?
Yeah.
When they fill out that application, is that going to be there, or is this going to be a surprise to somebody when we say, okay, well, it's 10 o'clock now and you get 2 more people waiting?
It's a good question. I'll tell you for one thing, I know that, you know, our next meeting's got a really full agenda, and the attorney had said that he knew we were going to be looking into these changes. And he did say that if there was a chance that these changes could come into play for that meeting, to let everyone know in advance that it is possible that we would be operating under these new bylaws. After that, I don't know, Sandy, on the planning board, do they let people know in advance that things could shut down by 10 o'clock?
They usually don't say anything about the timing of it. Fortunately, we haven't had anything run really late. And that meeting that we had, that was, you know, hopefully going to be the only one like that, but
exactly,
this is to prepare for that. And I don't think anybody really has a clue what the bylaws are other than you guys. I mean, they're on the website, but You know, yeah, and I can just type you up a fresh set of bylaws and incorporate that. And if you make the other change about the fiscal year, we
Yep.
can get it all into one and have a nice clean
Yep.
set to
Sounds
sign
good.
and upload to the website.
Sounds good to me. Does that answer your question, Fred?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't stepping, we were doing it right. In other words, nobody got a surprise and said, we didn't know that. We feel that we should have our turn too, even though it's, 10:30.
If it looks like it's going to be a long meeting when we have these big agendas, you could always state after you read the
Yeah.
the regular wording that goes into the record, you could state then that, in our bylaws, we are able to stop any new business as of 10 p.m. and we will not continue later than midnight.
Yep.
That way it's out there so that they're aware.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But you wouldn't want to have to say that at every meeting because it's not always applicable.
Right.
So let's see. I guess with this, hold on here. Too many windows. Okay, so I guess my thought is perhaps we take a motion on accepting the wording of new Article 4, Section 6 for the ZBA bylaws to be voted on at the next meeting. That's reasonable to have. I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense to at least have a motion to move it on to accept the wording and then have it, to be voted on at the next meeting. The question is it, do we do it at the next meeting? Do we put it in beforehand?
Well, next meeting's the 31st, right?
It is, yeah. That's a jam packed night.
Yeah.
Hey, David.
Yeah. Yep.
Is it possible? I'm not sure. Is it possible to accept it, vote on it as is, since we don't have any edits? I mean, it went out as it is, and we're not making modifications to it, and that this would give us more than 10 days. Rather than editing it before we go into that potentially long next meeting, it might be better. I don't know if it's possible.
Well, our next meeting's 14 days away.
And it also appears at this point that those items will still be, the other ones that made it long last time will be postponed. The new items, none of them are really big issues. There's so many because they're all setback variances and they wanted to get them in before the ordinance may change after town meeting vote. That's why there's so many of them, but they're all just setback variances.
Yep.
That should move quickly.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find our bylaws. I just wanted to, why can I not find them? Here we go. I'm just trying to see what our bylaws say, Greg, about having to vote them in. Amendments. The ZBA shall have the authority to amend these bylaws by vote at a regular or special meeting, provided that all members receive written notice of potential bylaw amendments at least 7 days prior to the date of the meeting. So when did Sandy send my?
It was the 5th.
Yeah. So it's been more than 7 days. So Sandy, do you see any?
11 days, 10, 11 days.
Yeah.
No, I think you're covered for that. And then you can just all sign them at the next meeting.
Okay.
But the adoption of them would actually have been that you voted on them tonight. So they would be effective.
So I'm just going to move to adopt bylaw changes, new ones, Article 4, Section 6 and Section 7 as written and presented and discussed here tonight.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion on this with anyone? Okay, we'll have to do a roll call vote. So all in favor of adopting these, David Murch says yes.
Fred Miller says yes.
Tom Hennessy, yes.
Greg Dean, yes.
Excellent. So that one's approved. Next one is a modification to Article 3, Section 1. As it reads now, the ZBA shall annually elect from their membership a chairperson to preside at all meetings. This election will take place at the first regularly scheduled meeting of the year. So in the past, there's been some confusion as to, is that year the calendar year or the fiscal year? And it had been discussed that this was to be the fiscal year. There was actually a discussion and a vote on it a couple of years ago by the ZBA board at that time to modify it to fiscal year. It did get approved, but they never signed it. So the change never took place. So because of that, it's still just year. So adding fiscal year or calendar year, some sort of date helps provide clarity as to exactly when the votes to take place. So it's been my understanding that it's always intended to be fiscal year. So the town of Raymond's fiscal year starts in on July. But it doesn't have to be fiscal year. We can modify it to be calendar year. Planning board specifically says in June. So we can change this to whatever we would like, but the intent for the change is to just provide clarity of what this year actually is.
And that, excuse me, that runs basically on like our terms and stuff. Is that what that's geared mostly on? Or?
What's that now? What do you mean by that?
When you're doing fiscal year or calendar year, what are we using that for? For what?
I'm sorry, it's for the election of the ZBA chair.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, yes.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Right.
The planning board does their elections on June of every year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do it this way for ZBA because in the past, I don't think ZBA met as frequently as the planning board, so there was never a guarantee there would be a June meeting.
I saw that. Is that a 3-year or 1 year?
Well, each person is
3-year, right?
Each person's term on the board is for 3 years, but the chair is elected every year, and it's
Right.
not in our bylaws, but we also elect the vice chair. That's a yearly thing.
You could insert chair and vice chair in that section if you wanted to as well, David.
Yeah, I was wondering if we should do that. My problem is Article 3 is election and responsibilities of the ZBA chairperson. So thought about shoring that in, but I wasn't too sure if that would be appropriate. So any thoughts? Do we like fiscal year? Do we want to give it a specific month of the year? Do we want to go with calendar year?
I think if the precedence is fiscal year, which it sounds, I don't know, but it sounds like that's what the research indicates, then it's reasonable just to keep it in line with everything else.
Yep. And do we want to try and shoehorn vice chair into this?
Not really. I just vice chair for 3 years.
I'm good with leaving it as chair.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, and you just can elect the vice chair because you want to, and that way the responsibilities would all be the same because he'd be acting in place of the chair.
Yep. Okay. So I'll make a motion to accept into our bylaws modifications to Article 3, Section 1 to include the wording of Town of Raymond's fiscal to qualify the word year. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? So, right, we'll do a roll call vote. All in favor of accepting that modification? David March, yes.
And Miller, yes.
Tom Hennessy, yes.
Greg Dean, yes.
Okay, excellent. So Sandy, you'll be able to take it from there. Awesome, thank you.
Yep, I will.
So next on our agenda is interview with Pete Lockwood for a role on the ZBA.
David, this is Tom. Can I hold you up for just 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
I need to diverge that I know Pete Lockwood. I'm familiar with him, but I can say I never talked to him about ZBA and didn't encourage him or discourage them from joining. So just letting you know that I know this gentleman. So.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. So Pete, I see that you are still interested in a role on the ZBA. Can you just give us a little quick bit of background and reasons behind wanting to join?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you all for having me this evening. And Tom, that was going to be my first comment, was disclosing that you and I had worked for several years together at Bath Iron Works. So thank you for doing that. So I've been a resident of Raymond for 35 years. 2 of my children were born and raised in this town and have participated in anything from scoutings to t-ball and softball, and just have a real sense of being an owner of this town, having been here as long as I have, and wanting to see that the precious place that this is taken care of and protected. My wife and I live up on the mountain road. We enjoy the house that we have here, and want to be able to preserve that for ourselves and for others. I did watch the last meeting, April 26th meeting. I'm not afraid. So, but you guys definitely put in some time and do a lot of work. That's something that I'm not afraid of. Been doing the hard work my whole career. So I would look forward to being able to do some of that work.
Excellent. We have site walks that occur every 10 days before. It's on a Saturday, typically start at 9. This week we have 3 of them, so it's going to be 9, 10, and 11. But you know, for the future, do you have any time commitments that would prevent you from attending a site walk or the monthly meetings that come up as needed?
I do not. I mean, my wife and I have, even though we're retired, we have a busy schedule, but we do make priorities for things, you know, such as having to do the sidewalks. And that's something that I'm particularly interested in as far as this board. I really enjoy walking property. I have a background in carpentry and design. And so being able to look and see at those things really interests me.
Great. Greg, Fred, Tom, any questions for Pete?
None from me. I know Pete very well.
Okay, quiet. Greg or Fred, before we take our vote, do you have any concerns about Tom taking a vote on this?
I do not. No, I do not. I think it's okay.
What is is there any like thing in the bylaws? Is this addressed at all?
No, well, it is. If we feel like there's some sort of conflict of interest, we as a board can decide if Tom should be allowed to vote.
Oh, to like approve the application? Yeah,
or like, I guess technically for an application, I don't know. I know in terms of if we have to take a vote and we feel, at least in terms of an appeal, then Tom divulged, we vote as a board as to whether or not we feel Tom can be included in that vote. I just want to cover my bases in regards to this. If anybody feels that Tom should not take a vote, I'm okay with you know, hearing that.
I mean, I think that, you know, with Tom knowing him in some way, probably helps with working with Peter, knowing him, that, who he is, and if Tom thinks, that he's the right person. I mean, I feel good with talking to him and how he's presented himself, that he would be a good person for our committee. And I didn't see anything there real quick looking in the bylaws that, like I said, I think it's more to a zoning setback or a zoning, thing that is from us voting on something, but, and us.
Yep. How do you feel about that, Craig? It's not overly clear, but
Yeah, I think it's probably more of an issue if you're a bunch of neighbors somehow get on the zoning board. That would be, I'm assuming you have a professional relationship, would be, live next to him and colluding to modify property or something, that's probably the spirit of the concern.
yeah. And it is a fair point, Pete, when it comes to the things that come up before the zoning board. We're not really allowed to discuss any of this outside everything. All of our discussions when it comes to an appeal has to be done within a public setting. So, having any contact with anybody on the board outside of this, or even contact with an appeals person who's making an appeal to discuss the case is not allowed. So that's a fair thing to bring up, especially if you and Tom have known each other and worked together. Giving Tom a call and say, hey, what do you think about this item on the appeal? That's kind of a no-no. So it's just fair to bring out there.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
We are not neighbors. We live miles apart, just so you know.
Yeah,
Right. You'd have to swim across Crescent Lake, basically.
So I'm not sensing any issue with having Tom take a vote on this. So I will make a motion to accept to Pete's application to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
There we go. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting Pete's application for the Zoning Board of Appeals? David Murch in favor, yes.
Fred Miller, yes.
Tom Hennessy, yes.
Greg Dean, yes.
Okay, so Pete, as far as my understanding is, your application will now get sent to the select board. And at one of the select board's upcoming meetings, they'll make a final decision as to accepting you onto the board. So you'll have one additional interview to go through, and that will be with the select board.
Okay.
So, and
Great.
Sandy will make sure to get in contact. I think it's with Sue Look.
Yes.
Yep. And Sue, you should see something from Sue Look in terms of coordinating that.
Or she'll tell me, and you'll get an email from me about it. I never know which way she's going with that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to volunteer. And Tom, yeah.
Hey, David, in the meantime, he can attend the site walks. They're all public, right?
Yeah, you definitely could if you would like to.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't think there's a select board meeting in advance of the ZBA meeting, but you're certainly welcome to attend the ZBA meeting that's coming up, and at least sit in and listen to what's going on.
Yeah,
Sure.
I can email you all those documents, Pete, so that you'll have them.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for taking the time to talk with me tonight.
Yeah, thanks
Of
for
course.
volunteering.
Yes, thank you very much. So last item, adjournment. I motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? David, yes.
Fred, yes.
Tom, yes.
Greg, yes.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good
Night.
evening. Thank you. And
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you,
Gentlemen.
Sandy.
Right.
Thank you, Sandy. Good night.